So now in conservation discipline, when you get a project, the systematic steps are as follows. That we look into the building, we document the building, something which is called measure drawing. And while we are doing that, we understand the construction of the building, how it was made, what are the dimensions, what are the technology which is used. Once you have a good set of drawings, then we prepare something which is called a fabric status report, which tells you where the defects are, where things went wrong, what were the past interventions. So it's a very creative field in which you get a chance to dig into past, refer the archives, check the history, why was it made, what was the importance and things like that. And then we share our inferences in this report, and we try to understand why these defects have happened. And when we are doing conservation, there is always a philosophy which we follow, which is of minimum intervention, trying to respect the maximum of the past, so that the authenticity of it is maintained. And once we submit this document to the clients, and if we are on the same page, then we take off to execute it as a project. Now, when we go to this stage, this is the most difficult bit of it. We have to submit our drawings to the Heritage Committee. Then we have to float tenders. Sometimes we can float tenders, sometimes we don't have tenders which can be floated. We have to rely on artisans who are experts on this field, because a lot of work which we do is labor intensive, reviving lost art, and is a lot of experimentation. So it's not easily quantifiable, it's not easily doable. And once the tenders are floated, or the artisans are selected, we try to monitor it on a regular basis. And this is the most important and the crucial bit of it for a conservation architect, to see that what he is envisaged is being executed in reality. Once this is done, the project then comes to an end. Having said this, this is a very time-consuming process. It is something like a root canal, which takes very long time to do, but it does give you good results. In conservation, we do have many challenges or many critical areas. And these areas, as I mentioned to you, that it's not a very established discipline. There's a lot of experimentation, a lot of revival being done. Many a times we want to source the original materials, but these are not available. Like sometimes you don't get very large sections of wood if you want to replace a large timber. You don't get the colored glasses, you don't get cast iron, or how to weld a cast iron with the appropriate, if it is broken. So there are many gray areas which are there, which are critical challenges. The other most important bit is that most of our heritage buildings are with the government. And when they are with the government, you have the particular system that when you float a tender, the lowest tenderer has to do it. And this is something which is not always the best, not always gives you the best result, because you deal with the lowest bidder who tries to cut corners. So there are compromises which are made, which we try to avoid. So these are two fundamental ones. The third is element of surprise. Many a times we really don't know, when we open up a false ceiling, what are we going to see, whether the trusses are in perfect condition or they're likely to collapse. So there's a lot of amount of uncertainty. And this is where, with experience, we can factor this. And of course, you have to plan the whole project in a manner that you factor all these things which are likely to come, where to prop it so that no collapses happen, and how to then restore it to its original authenticity. And this is, as I mentioned earlier, this is where we'll have to check with the archival references and historical evidences. And many a times these are done even at site, while removing paints and trying to verify, to match it with what the books are saying.